Daniel Cole was sleeping when the alarm started. The sound was loud and sharp, cutting through the quiet hum of the cargo ship like a knife. He jumped out of his small bed and grabbed the wall as the whole vessel shook hard. He was a maintenance engineer on the Starboard Drift, a simple cargo ship that moved supplies between human colonies in the outer systems. It was boring work, but it paid well and kept him far from the politics and problems of Earth. Daniel was 29 years old, average height, with brown hair and tired eyes. He had joined this crew because he wanted peace. He was about to lose it forever. The ship shook again. Daniel pulled on his boots and ran into the hallway. Other crew members were running too, their faces full of fear. He grabbed a young woman named Lisa by the arm. "What is happening?" he asked. "Kithrani," she said. The word came out like a curse. They came out of nowhere. 3 warships. Daniel felt his stomach drop. Everyone knew about the Kithrani. They were a species of tall, powerful females with lavender skin and silver eyes. Their empire stretched across dozens of star systems, and they had one simple belief: males were inferior, dangerous, useless. In their society, there were no males at all. They created children through genetic science, mixing the DNA of 2 females. To them, male creatures were like wild animals, good for nothing but causing problems. The Kithrani did not keep male prisoners. They killed them. Daniel and Lisa ran toward the bridge. The captain, a tough woman named Grace Park, was shouting orders as the ship tried to escape. But the Starboard Drift was a cargo vessel, slow and heavy. The Kithrani warships were fast and built for war. There was no escape. The first boarding pod hit the ship like a hammer. Daniel heard the metal scream as the Kithrani cut through the hull. Then came the sounds of fighting, of screaming, of energy weapons firing. It lasted only minutes. When the Kithrani soldiers entered the cargo bay where Daniel and the others had gathered, he saw them clearly for the first time. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with bodies built for combat. Their lavender skin was smooth, and their silver eyes showed no emotion. They moved like hunters, quick and sure. The leader of the boarding party looked at the humans with disgust. She spoke in her own language. Then a device on her armor translated her words into English. "Separate the females from the males," she ordered. The Kithrani soldiers pushed the humans into 2 groups. The women of the Starboard Drift, including Captain Park and Lisa, were forced to one side. The men, including Daniel, were pushed to the other. There were 8 men in total. Daniel watched as a Kithrani officer walked down the line of men, scanning each one with a small device. She looked at the results and shook her head. "These males will be processed for termination," she said calmly. "Standard protocol." One of the men, a big engineer named Pete, tried to fight. He swung his fist at the nearest soldier. The Kithrani did not even flinch. She caught his arm and twisted it until Daniel heard the bone snap. Pete fell to the ground, screaming. "Do not resist," the officer said. "It only makes things slower." The men were taken to a holding cell on one of the Kithrani warships. Daniel sat in the corner, his heart beating fast. He knew what was coming. He had heard stories about what the Kithrani did to males. Quick execution if you were lucky. Something worse if you were not. Hours passed. One by one, the men were taken away. They did not come back. Daniel listened to the silence after each one left, and he felt the cold grip of death getting closer. When they finally came for him, Daniel did not fight. 2 soldiers grabbed his arms and dragged him down a long hallway to a processing room. A young Kithrani officer sat behind a desk, looking bored. She was smaller than the others, probably new to her job. Her name tag said Vethra. Vethra scanned Daniel with her device. She looked at the results, then looked at him. Her silver eyes narrowed. "Small," she muttered to herself. "Very small for a male." Daniel said nothing. He was 5'7", shorter than average for a human man. Among the Kithrani, who were all nearly 7 feet tall, he must have looked tiny. Vethra typed something into her computer. She looked confused for a moment, then shrugged and typed more. Daniel watched her, not understanding what was happening. "Take this one to Transport Bay 4, Vethra said to the soldiers. "Prisoner transferred to Holding Facility 17. The soldiers looked surprised. One of them spoke. "Facility 17? That is a female prison." "I know what it is," Vethra snapped. "The biometrics show this prisoner as a defective female. Hormone imbalance, underdeveloped physiology. The system classified it automatically. I am not going to waste time arguing with the computer. Just move it." Daniel did not correct her. He did not say a word. If a mistake in the system could save his life, he would take it. The soldiers shrugged and dragged him away. Daniel was put on a transport ship with dozens of other prisoners, all of them female aliens from different species. They looked at him with confusion and suspicion. He kept his head down and stayed quiet. The journey to Holding Facility 17 took 3 days. Daniel learned that the prison was on a frozen moon called Kithal, a place of ice and stone where the Kithrani sent their most dangerous criminals. The prisoners around him were murderers, terrorists, and war criminals. They were the worst of the worst from 3 different star systems, and Daniel was going to live among them. When the transport ship landed, Daniel was pushed out into the freezing air. The prison was a massive structure of black metal, surrounded by endless fields of ice. Armed guards stood everywhere, watching the new arrivals with cold eyes. Inside the processing bay, Daniel stood in a line with the other prisoners. A tall Kithrani woman walked toward them. She had scars on her face and an eye patch over her left eye. Her remaining eye was sharp and cruel. This was Commander Sirith, the warden of Facility 17. Sirith walked down the line, inspecting each prisoner. When she reached Daniel, she stopped. She stared at him for a long moment. "What is this?" she asked quietly. A guard handed her Daniel's file. Sirith read it and laughed, a cold and bitter sound. "A human male," she said. "Classified as a defective female by some idiot junior officer." She looked at Daniel like he was a dead animal. "Do you know where you are, little creature?" Daniel nodded slowly. "This is a prison for the most violent females in 3 star systems," Sirith continued. "There are no males here. There have never been males here. You are a mistake." Daniel found his voice. "Then send me somewhere else." Sirith smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "That would cost resources, time, paperwork. It is easier to let you die." She leaned close to him. "I give you 3 days. Maybe less. The other prisoners will tear you apart for entertainment." She walked away, leaving Daniel standing in the cold processing bay. Around him, the other prisoners were already watching. Some of them smiled. Some of them laughed. All of them looked hungry. Daniel Cole had survived the Kithrani execution order. Now, he had to survive something worse. He had to survive Facility 17. The first night in Facility 17 was the longest of Daniel's life. He was given a small cell in Block 7, a section of the prison reserved for new arrivals. The cell had a hard bed, a toilet, and nothing else. The walls were cold metal. The air smelled like chemicals and fear. Daniel did not sleep. He sat on his bed and listened to the sounds of the prison. Screaming, laughing, fighting. The noise never stopped. Somewhere in the distance, he heard something heavy hit the floor. Then silence. In the morning, the cell doors opened automatically. Daniel walked out into the common area, where dozens of prisoners were already gathered. They came from many different species. The Kithrani were the most common, tall and lavender-skinned with silver eyes. But there were others too. The Kivari were insect-like creatures with hard shells and many arms. The Vasek were reptilian, with green scales and sharp teeth. And there were species Daniel had never seen before, strange and frightening. All of them looked at Daniel as he entered. He felt their eyes on him like knives. A large Kithrani woman walked toward him. She was bigger than the others, with muscles that looked like they were carved from stone. Her silver eyes were full of cruelty. Behind her walked 4 other prisoners, her gang. "So this is the male," the big woman said. Her voice was deep and rough. "I heard rumors, but I did not believe them. A male in Facility 17. She laughed. "The universe has a strange sense of humor." Daniel said nothing. He kept his face calm even though his heart was racing. "I am Morath," the woman continued. "I run Block 7. Everything here belongs to me. The food, the beds, the weak little creatures who cannot protect themselves." She smiled, showing sharp teeth. "That means you belong to me now." Daniel looked at Morath. He looked at her gang. He looked at the other prisoners watching from the edges of the room. He was alone. He was small. He was weak compared to any of them, but he was not stupid. "I understand," Daniel said quietly. "You are in charge." Morath laughed again. "Smart little male. Maybe you will last a few days after all." She grabbed his arm and pulled him close. "Tonight, you will clean my cell. You will wash my clothes. You will do whatever I tell you. If you do a good job, I might let you live." Daniel nodded. Morath pushed him away and walked off with her gang. The other prisoners lost interest and went back to their own business. Daniel found a corner of the common area and sat down. He watched everything. He watched how the prisoners moved, who talked to who was afraid of who. He noticed the guards standing on the upper level, looking bored and distant. They did not care what happened to the prisoners. They only stepped in if someone tried to escape. He noticed something else too. Behind Morath's usual spot in the common area, there was a large ventilation grate. He could feel cold air coming from it. The heating system in this part of the prison must be connected to that vent. Daniel remembered something from his training as a maintenance engineer. The Kithrani were from a warm planet. Their bodies did not handle cold well. Even a few degrees of temperature drop could make them sick and weak. An idea began to form in his mind. That night, Daniel went to Morath's cell as ordered. He cleaned. He washed. He did everything she told him while she sat on her bed and laughed at him with her gang. When they grew bored and fell asleep, Daniel looked around the cell. He found the heating panel on the wall. He had no tools, but he had his hands and his knowledge. Quietly, carefully, he removed the panel cover. Inside were the wires and circuits that controlled the heating for this section of Block 7. Daniel studied them for a moment. Then he made a few small changes. Nothing obvious. Nothing that would be noticed right away. He put the panel back and left the cell. For the next 2 days, Daniel acted like a perfect servant. He did whatever Morath ordered. He took insults and beatings without fighting back. The other prisoners thought he was pathetic. They laughed at him. They called him names. Daniel waited. On the 3rd night, the temperature in Morath's section of Block 7 dropped sharply. The heating system failed, and freezing air poured through the vents. Daniel was uncomfortable, but he survived. The Kithrani were not so lucky. By morning, Morath and her entire gang were too weak to move. Their lavender skin had turned pale. They shook and coughed and could barely stand. The prison medical team had to take them to the infirmary. No one knew what had happened. The guards checked the heating system but found nothing wrong. They blamed it on old equipment, but the prisoners knew. They saw how Daniel had been Morath's servant. They saw how he was the only one in that section who was not sick. They did not understand how he had done it, but they understood that he had done something. The rumors spread fast. The little human male was not as helpless as he looked. He was dangerous in a way they had never seen before. He did not fight with his fists. He fought with his brain. Over the following weeks, Daniel used his reputation carefully. He did not try to become a leader. He did not try to build a gang of his own. Instead, he made himself useful. When a Kavari prisoner had a broken arm that the medical team refused to treat, Daniel set the bone himself using skills he had learned on the cargo ship. The Chivari's hive sisters remembered this kindness. When a Vasek warrior lost her privileges because a guard lied about her behavior, Daniel found proof of the lie by accessing the security records through a maintenance terminal. The Vasek remembered this favor. When the prison's water recycling system broke down, Daniel fixed it in 2 hours. The whole facility benefited. Even Commander Sirith noticed that slowly, Daniel built something more valuable than strength. He built trust. He became the person who could solve problems that no one else could solve. He was the one who knew how things worked. He was the one who could help. The prison had 4 major factions. The Kithrani purists were led by a calm and intelligent woman named Talanis. They believed in Kithrani superiority and kept to themselves. The Kavari Hive sisters operated as one mind, sharing thoughts and feelings. The Vasek mercenaries respected only strength and loyalty. And the outcasts were prisoners from rare species who had no allies. Daniel did not join any faction. Instead, he helped all of them. He became neutral ground. When there were disputes, prisoners started coming to him to find solutions. Not because he was strong, because he was fair. Commander Sirith watched all of this from her tower. She had expected the human male to die in 3 days. Instead, he had survived 3 months and was becoming one of the most important people in her prison. She did not like it. But she could not deny that the prison was running more smoothly than before. There were fewer fights, less damage to equipment. The prisoners were still dangerous, but they were calmer. One day, Sirith called Daniel to her office. He stood before her desk, small and quiet, while she studied him with her one good eye. "I do not understand you," she said finally. "You are a male. You should be dead. Instead, you are becoming powerful." Daniel shook his head. "I am not powerful. I am useful. There's a difference." Sirith thought about this for a long moment. Then she smiled, just a little. "Perhaps there is," she said. "Go back to your cell, human, and try not to die. You are more interesting alive." Daniel nodded and left. As he walked back through the cold hallways of Facility 17, he allowed himself a small moment of hope. He had survived. He had adapted. He had found a place in this world of violence and cruelty, but he knew that his real test was still coming. The piece he had built was fragile. Sooner or later, something would break it, and when it did, Daniel would need more than cleverness to survive. 18 months had passed since Daniel Cole arrived at Facility 17. In that time, he had learned the rhythms of the prison. He knew when the guards changed shifts. He knew which prisoners were dangerous and which were just scared. He knew the sound of trouble before it started. That morning, the sound was different. It began in the eastern cell blocks, a section reserved for the most violent prisoners. Daniel heard shouting first, then screaming, then the deep boom of an explosion. Alarms started blaring across the facility. Daniel ran to the common area of Block 7. Prisoners were gathered in groups, talking fast and looking scared. A Kavari hive sister named Keth found him in the crowd. "Something bad has happened," Keth said. Her voice buzzed with worry. "The food shipment from yesterday. It was contaminated. Dozens of prisoners in the eastern blocks are sick. Some of them are dying." Daniel felt cold. How did contaminated food get through inspection? "That is the question everyone is asking," Keth replied. "The rumors say it was not an accident. They say the warden did it on purpose. She wanted to reduce the prison population. Daniel did not know if the rumors were true, but it did not matter. What mattered was that the prisoners believed them. And belief was all it took to start a war. The riot exploded across Facility 17 like fire through dry grass. The Kivari blamed the Kithrani guards for allowing the poisoned food through. The Vasek saw the chaos as a chance to take territory they had wanted for years. The Kithrani purists declared that this was proof of outsider corruption. The outcasts simply ran, trying to find safety anywhere they could. Guards tried to restore order. 3 of them were killed in the first hour. Their weapons were taken by prisoners who had nothing left to lose. Commander Sirith ordered a full lockdown. Heavy doors slammed shut across the facility, trapping prisoners in whatever section they happened to be in. The power grid flickered, then failed completely. Emergency lights came on, casting everything in a dim red glow. The heating system shut down, and the freezing air of Kithel began to seep through the walls. Daniel was in the central hub when the lockdown happened. The hub was a large circular room where the main corridors of the prison met. It had been a neutral zone, a place where prisoners from different blocks could interact. Now it was a trap. There were about 30 prisoners stuck in the hub with Daniel. Representatives from all 4 factions were there. Morith had recovered from her illness months ago, and she stood with a group of Kithrani criminals. Talanis, the leader of the Kithrani purists, was there too, her calm face hiding whatever she was feeling. A Kivari queen named Sikri sat in a corner, her mind connected to the few Hive sisters who had been caught with her. And Vaughn, a scarred Vasek commander, paced back and forth like a caged animal. The outcasts huddled near the walls, watching everything with frightened eyes. For the first few hours, the factions stayed apart. They watched each other and waited. But as the temperature dropped and hunger set in, the tension began to rise. Morith was the first to speak. "We cannot stay here forever. The lockdown will not end until the riot is crushed. That could take days. We need to act." Talanis shook her head. "Acting rashly is what caused this disaster. We should wait for order to be restored." "Order?" Morith laughed bitterly. "The warden tried to kill us with poison. What order is there to restore?" "We do not know that the warden was responsible," Talanis said. "You believe rumors because they suit your anger." Vaughn stopped pacing, her yellow eyes fixed on Talanis. "The Vasek lost 6 warriors to that poison. Someone is responsible. Someone will pay." Sikri, the Kivari queen, spoke for the first time. Her voice was strange, like many voices speaking together. "The Kivari have also suffered. But revenge will not bring back our dead. We should focus on survival." "Easy for you to say," Morith snapped. "Your kind can survive on nothing. The rest of us need food, water, heat." The argument grew louder. Accusations flew back and forth. Old hatred surfaced. Daniel watched from the edge of the room as the situation got worse and worse. Then someone threw the first, punched out a Kithrani criminal, attacked a Vasek warrior. Within seconds, the whole room exploded into violence. Prisoners fought with fists, claws, and improvised weapons. The outcast screamed and tried to hide. Daniel pressed himself against the wall. He was too small to fight, too weak to stop anyone. But he could see everything. He could see that this fight would not end with a winner. It would end with bodies. He needed to do something. Anything. Daniel looked around the room. He saw a maintenance panel on the wall near the emergency lights. He pushed through the chaos, dodging punches and kicks, until he reached it. He opened the panel and found what he was looking for: the control circuit for the emergency alarm. He pulled the wires. A new alarm started blaring, louder than anything else. The sound was so painful that everyone stopped fighting and covered their ears. In that moment of silence, Daniel climbed onto a table in the center of the room. "Stop," he said. His voice was calm but firm. "Stop fighting right now." Moreth recovered first. She glared at Daniel with fury in her eyes. "Who do you think you are, little male? This is not your concern." "It is my concern," Daniel replied, "because I am trapped here with all of you. And if you keep fighting, we will all die." "Then we die," Varn growled. "Better to die fighting than to die like prey." Daniel shook his head. "That is not true, and you know it. You are a warrior, Varn. You have survived 100 battles. You did not survive by throwing your life away for nothing." He turned to Moreth. "You want to break out and attack the Warden. What happens after? The orbital defense platform will destroy this entire facility. You will kill everyone here, including yourself." He turned to Talanis. "You want to wait for order to be restored. But the guards are losing. The power is gone. Help is not coming." He turned to Sikri. "You want to focus on survival. I agree. But survival means working together, not abandoning the weak to die." The room was silent. Everyone was watching Daniel now. He was the smallest person there, standing on a table, surrounded by the most dangerous criminals in 3-star systems. He had their attention. Now he needed to give them something to believe in. "I know you hate each other," Daniel said. "I know there are wounds here that go back generations. But right now, none of that matters. What matters is that we are all going to freeze to death if we do not work together." He pointed to the blocked corridors. "The heating system controls are in the maintenance section. I can fix them, but I cannot get there alone. The food storage is in the north wing. There is enough there to keep us alive for days, but it is guarded by prisoners who will not share unless we convince them." He looked at each faction leader in turn. "I am asking you to put aside your wars. Not forever. Just until we survive this crisis. After that, you can go back to killing each other if you want. But let us live long enough to have that choice." The silence stretched on. Daniel could feel his heart pounding in his chest. If they refused, he was dead. If they agreed, there was a chance. Talanis spoke first. "You are asking us to trust each other. Trust does not exist here." "Then trust me," Daniel said. "I have no faction. I have no allies. I have nothing to gain from betraying any of you. I just want to survive, and I want to help you survive too." Moreth laughed, but it was not a cruel laugh this time. It was almost respectful. "You have courage, little male. I will give you that." Varn stared at Daniel for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "The Vasek will honor a temporary truce. But if anyone betrays us, I will tear them apart with my own claws." Sikri spoke for the Kivari. "We agree. Survival first." Talanis sighed. "Very well. We will try your way, human. But if this fails, your death will be the first." Daniel nodded. "Fair enough." He stepped down from the table. For the first time since the riot started, there was something like hope in the room. The alliance had begun. The truce was fragile. Daniel could see it in the way the faction leaders watched each other, their bodies tense and ready for betrayal. Trust did not exist in Facility 17. But for now, fear of death was stronger than hatred. Daniel gathered the leaders around a table in the center of the hub. He spoke quickly and clearly. "We have 3 problems: cold, food, and violence. If we do not solve all 3, we die." He pointed to a rough map of the facility he had scratched into the table's surface with a piece of metal. "The heating controls are here, in the maintenance section. That is Vasek territory right now. Varn, your warriors control that area. Can you get us access?" Varn nodded slowly. "My people hold that section. Yes. But the heating system is broken. None of us know how to fix it." "I do," Daniel said. "I was an engineer before I came here. If you can get me to the control room safely, I can restore at least partial heat to the central areas. Varn considered this. Bringing a human into Vasek territory was dangerous. Her warriors might not accept it, but the cold was killing them too. I will take you myself, she said finally. Anyone who questions my decision will answer to me. Daniel nodded and turned to Sikri, the Kivari queen. Your hive sisters are the best engineers in this prison after me. I need them to help repair the power distribution network. Without stable power, the heat will not spread properly. Sikri tilted her head, her insect eyes reflecting the dim light. The Kivari will help. But we need something in return. Medical supplies. Many of our sisters were hurt in the fighting. The infirmary is controlled by no one right now, Daniel said. If we work together, we can secure it and share the supplies equally among all factions. He turned to Talinus next. Your faction has the most disciplined members. I need them to organize the distribution of food and water. No favoritism. Everyone gets the same amount, regardless of species or faction. Talinus raised an eyebrow. You want Kithrani purists to serve other species? That goes against everything we believe. I know, Daniel said. But I am not asking you to believe anything different. I am asking you to do a job that needs to be done. You can hate the people you are feeding. Just feed them. Talinus was silent for a moment. Then a small smile crossed her face. You are a strange creature, human. Very well. We will manage the food. Finally, Daniel looked at Morith. The big Kithrani criminal had been watching everything with suspicious eyes. What about me? She asked. What is my role in this little plan? The most important one, Daniel said. Security. There are still violent groups out there who will not join the truce. Someone needs to protect the areas we control. Your gang is the strongest. I need you to keep the peace. Morith laughed. You want me to be a guard? Like the ones who kept us locked in cages? No, Daniel said. Not like them. The guards did not care about us. You care. You care about your people, your territory, your pride. Use that. Protect what matters. Morith stared at him for a long time. Then she shrugged her massive shoulders. Fine, but if this falls apart, I am blaming you. Fair enough, Daniel said. Over the next 72 hours, Daniel barely slept. He moved through the prison like a ghost, solving problems and putting out fires before they could spread. The trip to the maintenance section with Varn was terrifying. They had to pass through corridors filled with fighting, broken equipment, and bodies. Vasek warriors surrounded them, their yellow eyes watching for any threat. Daniel kept his head down and focused on the task. When they reached the heating control room, Daniel found what he expected, a mess of broken circuits and damaged wiring. The Kithrani had built this facility cheaply. The systems were old and poorly maintained, but Daniel was good at his job. He had spent years keeping cargo ships running with limited parts and no support. This was harder, but not impossible. He worked for 6 hours straight, reconnecting wires, bypassing damaged circuits, and rerouting power. Vaughn watched him the whole time, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. You work like your life depends on it, she said. At one point, Daniel did not look up from his work. It does. All of our lives depend on it. When he finally activated the heating system, warm air began flowing through the central sections of the prison. It was not perfect. Some areas were still cold, but it was enough to keep people alive. The Vasek warriors looked at Daniel with something like respect. He had done what he promised. Meanwhile, the Kivari Hive sisters worked on the power network. Their multiple arms and shared minds made them perfect for the complex task. Within a day, they had stabilized the electrical grid in the areas controlled by the Alliance. Talinus and her purists organized the food distribution with cold efficiency. They did not smile. They did not offer kind words, but they gave everyone equal portions, just as Daniel had asked. Prisoners who had been enemies ate side by side in the hub, too tired and hungry to fight. Morath and her gang patrolled the borders of Alliance territory. Several times, hostile groups tried to attack. Each time, Morath drove them back. She was brutal but effective. Daniel moved between all of them, solving disputes before they could explode into violence. When a Vasek warrior accused a Kivari of stealing, Daniel investigated and found the truth. The item had simply been misplaced. When a Kizrani purist refused to give food to an outcast prisoner, Daniel reminded her that the rules applied to everyone. The purist obeyed, though she glared at him with hatred. On the third day, something unexpected happened. Commander Sirith appeared on the emergency communication screens that still worked in the hub. Her face was tired and bloody, but she was alive. "Attention all prisoners," she said. "Reinforcements are arriving from the Kithrani homeworld. The riot will be crushed within hours. Anyone who surrenders peacefully will be shown mercy." The faction leaders gathered around Daniel. "What do we do?" Morath asked. "If the reinforcements come, they will punish everyone. They will not care about our alliance." "She's right," Talanus said. "The Kithrani military does not negotiate. They destroy." Daniel thought carefully. "We need to show them that the situation is under control. If they arrive and find us fighting, they will use maximum force. But if they arrive and find us organized and peaceful, they might hold back." "You want us to surrender?" Varn growled. "No," Daniel said. "I want us to present ourselves as a solution, not a problem. The warden expected chaos. Let us give her something else." Over the next few hours, Daniel organized the most important presentation of his life. He had all the faction leaders stand together in the hub. He had prisoners from different species working side by side to repair damage and clean up debris. He had Morath's gang put down their weapons and stand in formation like an honor guard. When the Kithrani reinforcements finally breached the facility, they found something they did not expect. Instead of a war zone, they found a peaceful gathering. Instead of screening prisoners, they found quiet cooperation. And in the center of it all stood a small human male, directing traffic like it was the most normal thing in the world. The military commander, a tall woman named Consul Reth, approached Daniel with confusion on her face. "Who are you?" she demanded. "What is happening here?" Daniel bowed his head respectfully. "My name is Daniel Cole. I am a prisoner. We organized ourselves to survive the crisis. The situation in this area is stable." Consul Reth looked around the hub. She saw Kithrani and Kivari standing together. She saw Vasek warriors guarding the perimeter without violence. She saw outcasts being treated with dignity. "This is impossible," she whispered. "No," Daniel said. "It is just different." Commander Sirith arrived a few minutes later. She limped into the hub with bandages covering half her face. When she saw Daniel standing among the faction leaders, she stopped and stared. "You," she said. "You did this?" Daniel shook his head. "We did this. I just helped." Sirith was silent for a long moment. Then she laughed, a sound of pure disbelief. "3 days," she said. "I gave you 3 days to live. And now you have saved my prison." She turned to Consul Reth. "This human is not to be harmed. That is my official order." Reth looked like she wanted to argue, but she held her tongue. The evidence was clear. Whatever Daniel Cole had done, it had worked. The crisis was over. The Alliance had survived, and Daniel Cole had become something no one had ever expected: a leader. The news of what happened at Facility 17 spread across the Kithrani Empire like wildfire. A human male, a creature they considered inferior and worthless, had done the impossible. He had united the most dangerous criminals from 3 star systems. He had stopped a riot that should have destroyed the prison. He had succeeded where Kithrani soldiers and guards had failed. The High Council on the Kithrani homeworld did not believe it. They thought it must be a mistake, or a lie, or some kind of trick. They sent an investigator to learn the truth. Her name was Consul Vea. She was one of the most respected minds in the Empire, a woman who had solved mysteries that baffled entire planets. She was cold, logical, and absolutely certain of Kithrani superiority. The idea that a male had accomplished what the reports claimed was absurd to her. She would prove it was a fraud. Vea arrived at Facility 17 2 weeks after the riot ended. The prison was still recovering. Workers were repairing damaged sections. New guards had been brought in to replace those who died. But something had changed in the facility. Even Vea could feel it. The prisoners were calmer. There were fewer fights. Different species walked past each other without violence. It was not friendship, exactly, but it was not the constant war that prisons usually contained. Vea began her investigation by interviewing everyone who had been in the central hub during the crisis. She spoke with Morris, who had once wanted to claim Daniel as property. "What do you think of the human?" Vea asked. Morris shrugged her massive shoulders. "He is small and weak. I could kill him with one hand. But he sees things that we do not see. He thinks in ways that we cannot think. I have met warriors who could break mountains. I have never met anyone like him." Vea spoke with Varn, the Vasek commander. "Why did you follow him?" she asked. "The Vasek respect only strength." Varn's yellow eyes narrowed. "There are different kinds of strength, Consul. The strength to fight is common. The strength to make enemies work together? That is rare. That is power." Vea spoke with Tolanus, the Kithrani purist leader. "Your philosophy teaches that males are inferior," Vea said. "How do you explain what happened?" Tolanus was quiet for a long moment. "I do not explain it. I am still trying to understand it. My beliefs tell me that Daniel Cole should not exist. And yet, he does. Perhaps my beliefs are incomplete." Finally, Vea spoke with Daniel himself. They sat in a small room, facing each other across a metal table. Vea studied him with cold, analytical eyes. "You are not what I expected," she said. "What did you expect?" Daniel asked. "I expected a liar. Or a fool. Or someone who got lucky and took credit for the work of others." Vea leaned forward. "Instead, I find someone who actually did what the reports claim. The question is, how?" Daniel thought about the question carefully before answering. "When I first came here, everyone told me I would die," he said. "They said I was too small, too weak, too different. And they were right. In a fair fight, anyone in this prison could kill me. So how did you survive?" "I stopped thinking about fair fights," Daniel said. "I started thinking about what people actually need. The Kithrani need warmth. The Vasek need respect. The Kivari need community. The outcasts need protection. Everyone needs something. If you can give them what they need, they have no reason to hurt you." Vea frowned. "That is manipulation." "No," Daniel said. "Manipulation is tricking people into doing things that hurt them. What I do is different. I help people get what they want in exchange for getting what I want. Everyone benefits. And what do you want?" Daniel smiled sadly. "To survive. To be useful. To matter." He paused. "I am a human male. Your empire thinks I am worthless. The only way I can prove them wrong is by doing things that have worth." Vea was silent for a long time. She had expected to find a fraud. Instead, she had found something that challenged everything she believed. "Your methods are unusual," she said finally. "You do not compete. You do not dominate. You cooperate." "Yes," Daniel said. Is that so strange? In the Kithrani Empire, it is very strange, Vea admitted. We are taught that power comes from being stronger than others. You seem to believe that power comes from making others stronger. Daniel nodded. Maybe that is the human way. We are not the biggest species. We are not the fastest or the strongest. But we learned a long time ago that we can accomplish more together than we can apart. Vea returned to the homeworld and presented her report to the High Council. Her conclusion surprised everyone, including herself. Daniel Cole had succeeded precisely because he was male. The Kithrani society was built on competition. Every interaction was about dominance and hierarchy. This created strength, but it also created constant conflict. Prisoners in Facility 17 fought each other because that was all they knew how to do. Daniel was different. He had no place in the hierarchy. He could not compete because he could never win. So he invented a new game, one where winning meant helping others win too. The prisoners had trusted him because he was not a threat. He was so far below them in the hierarchy that they did not see him as a rival. And because they did not compete with him, they could actually listen to him. This was a form of power that the Kithrani had never considered. Power through vulnerability. Influence through service. The High Council did not know what to do with Vea's report. Some members dismissed it as an anomaly, a one-time event that meant nothing. Others were disturbed by its implications. If a male could accomplish this, what else might be possible? A small faction of younger Kithrani began to question the old teachings. They asked whether the Empire's beliefs about males were based on truth or just on tradition. They asked whether cooperation might sometimes be better than competition. These questions made the old guard uncomfortable. Change was coming to the Kithrani Empire, slow and uncertain, but real. Back at Facility 17, life continued. Commander Sirith offered Daniel an official position on her staff. The first time a male had ever held such a role in Kithrani history. He accepted. The factions that had united during the crisis did not dissolve completely. Instead, they evolved into a council that helped govern the prison's internal affairs. Morath became the head of security. Talanus managed education and philosophy. Varn trained prisoners in discipline and self-defense. Sikri coordinated labor and repairs. Daniel served as the neutral mediator, the one who solved disputes and kept the peace. He was not a leader in the traditional sense. He did not give orders or demand obedience. But everyone knew that when there was a problem, Daniel Cole was the one who could fix it. Years passed. Daniel grew older, his brown hair turning gray at the edges. He never tried to escape the prison or return to human space. He found something here that he had never expected, a purpose. One night, Daniel sat in the mess hall, surrounded by beings who had once wanted him dead. Morath was telling a story about her days as a criminal lord, exaggerating wildly. Varn laughed at her, which was rare for the serious Vasek. Talanus argued philosophical points with a Kavari engineer. Outcasts who had once been alone now had friends and protectors. Daniel watched them all with a quiet smile. He had come to this place as a mistake, a clerical error that should have meant his death. Instead, he had become something none of them had ever seen before, a bridge between worlds. He did not know what the future would bring. The Kithrani Empire was changing, slowly. Perhaps one day, males would be treated differently across their vast territory. Perhaps Daniel's example would spread. Or perhaps everything would stay the same, and his story would be forgotten. But in this one place, on this frozen moon at the edge of known space, something remarkable had happened. A human had shown an empire that strength was not the only kind of power. That cooperation could achieve what competition could not. That even the smallest and weakest creature could change the world, if they had the courage to try. The frozen winds of Kithel howled outside the prison walls. Inside, the mess hall was warm with laughter and argument and life. Daniel Cole, the mistake, the anomaly, the impossible man, finished his meal and smiled. He was exactly where he belonged.